Hi, good afternoon. Today is June 18th, 2025, and it's 6:37 p.m. Central Time, US Central Time. And my name is Reynaldo Aguiar. Welcome back to Rapid Fire Tips for Law Enforcement. This is a video I wanted to make with kind of small items that I've been meaning to mention for a few days, maybe weeks, but between one thing and another, I haven't been able to. So it's basically a connection of disparate things, but that might be important, okay? So first, I have a couple of erratas that I want to deliver. One is, there was a video in which recently I described the Form 211, and I did a walkthrough the master Form 211 that I submitted to the IRS, to the Internal Revenue Service. And during that walkthrough, I described the algorithm that I used to rank the entities within that form to make it a structure, to make it so people consuming that form could get a lot of intelligence more than what is just represented on the plain list. And when I did that, and I described the algorithm, characterized it as the NAFUST of crime. That's the phrase I use, right? And I said that it had three dimensions, and these dimensions were proximity to the political leader of the group, danger to the world, and economic power, like economic clout of the entity. But that wasn't entirely accurate. There's another dimension that is also included in that is proximity to me. And I wanted to give a little bit of context about that and why. It has nothing to do with ego or with seeking revenge, anything like that. The reason why I included that as a factor in that algorithm is because my end goal is to disrupt this network, right? And the people that are behind this get caught. And for that to happen, right, because we, in the United States, we are in a country where there is a separation of power, and there is a legal system and a judiciary system that works. And because of that, everybody has the right to a due process, and everybody is innocent until proven guilty. So my thinking is that by prioritizing entities that have proximity to me, those entities carry more liability, right? Because I can demonstrate that they have committed crimes. And if I can demonstrate it, I'm guessing it would be trivial for law enforcement agencies to do the same, even with more rigor, right, than I could ever do it. So because these entities carry liability, legal liability, I'm guessing, right? Like logic tells me that it is possible that they could cooperate with authorities, and that could basically cause a domino effect on the entire network. That is my hope. Okay. So by prioritizing those entities, in a way, right, I'm optimizing for the probability of that domino effect happening. So that is the fourth dimension that I did not mention in that occasion. That's the reason why, for example, Donald Patio Royo also ranks higher than Edilberto Molina, because Ronald Patio Royo is very close to Penelope Suarez, who was my running partner for years. And there might be direct proof that could be gathered on those activities, surveillance and eavesdropping and things like that. With Edilberto Molina, the most I could personally prove is that his sister dated my uncle. So there's less legal liability there, at least in what concerns direct connection to Reynaldo Aguiar. That's what I mean. So that's the first errata. The other errata, on the same line of thinking, like I have to say, in these videos, I think I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again today. In these videos, I always make the point to not talk about things that are directly connected to me, because I don't want my words to be twisted or my intentions to be misinterpreted, right? So I try to focus more on things that are far from me, right? Except in these cases where legal liability might be important. And that's the reason why I'm going to mention this following errata. So in one or two of the sessions before, when I referred to the agent's pretty that lived next door at the 26718 Valley Side Drive, Katy, Texas 77494, I spelled the last name as in that occasion as Pridy, but that was a mistake. The last name actually contains the actual last name contains two D's. So it's P as in Papa, R as in Robert, I as in India, D as in Delta, D as in Delta again, Y as in Yo-Yo. That is the correct spelling of that name. And it is an important name because, not because they're super prominent agents, but because these agents were directly paid by Citgo, the company controlled by the Venezuelan government operating here in the US. And the male agent is directly employed by Citgo, and there's a direct link there to Diosdado Cabello. A lot of legal liability, as I was saying at the beginning. So those are the two errors, okay? On the same line of thinking, I'm going to mention a couple of things that are connected to me closely. And I haven't mentioned them before, but it is possible that could be important, right? So one is, a couple of weeks ago, I was exchanging messages with the Venezuelan informant that works in the Venezuelan army. And he's, from what I can tell, he seems to be pretty high up. And he gave me a piece of information that I have no way to verify. It could be fake, like this has happened before where, an informant gives me bad information. And I'm guessing that it's just a way to discredit me. If they give me bad information and I say it out loud publicly, and it turns out to be a lie, then it looks like that I don't know what I'm talking about. They could attack my credibility that way. So that's why I haven't said it, but I'll say it just in case, because it could be real, I don't know. So this is what he told me. He told me that the Venezuelan team was planning in this week or the following week, in these few days, to do something to harm me. And this thing had to do with the air conditioning, like the air conditioning system of my house here, 26714 Valleyside Drive, Katy, Texas, 77494. Now, the informant, he wasn't specific about what was the mechanism that they were planning to use. I don't know exactly what is that they were going to do to the air conditioner, but according to the informant, they were working on a plan to do something to the air conditioner that could harm me and my mother, who was here visiting. But I don't know exactly what that thing is. I imagine authorities, if they ever look into this, they may have an idea how could that goal could be accomplished by accessing an air conditioning system that is installed outside of the house. Just for as a precaution, I'll give here the exact coordinates of the system where it's located. So this is the house, right? 26714 Valleyside Drive, Katy, Texas, 77494. And the air conditioning system is this one over here. So there's three ACs. So these two are like full, I think it's like they're like 2 tons or 3 tons units. So one is at 29.71155 minus 95.83944. The second unit is at 29.71156 minus 95.83943. And there is a third unit, which is a split system. That's the one that was installed by Adrian, the Sabine agent that was photographed, and then this is posted on the website. This was part of one of their attacks, 2023, I believe, at the end of 2023. And that unit is located just a little bit to the right. I think it's here, 29.71157 minus 95.83943. Now, here, in this corner over here, there is a gate that it's basically free access, right? Like it doesn't have a lock. And it gives access. I have it unlocked because the pool guy that comes to maintain the pool every week has to access through that gate, right? Of course, now I'm reconsidering that. But that's the situation, right? Now, that guy, I need to say a couple of things about him. I'll say them. So, of course, one is that I think that it is possible that the vehicle that if they were planning something to the AC, that person has access, I think, every Friday to that area. So it's possible that was the plan, right? Or that's the plan. Just in case, I'm going to give the phone number of this company that does that. And they say it's a company, but it's always the same person that comes to the service to the pool. It's always the same guy. Yeah, it's been for a year or something, a year and a half. The company is called Texas Outdoor Services, and the phone number is 832-250-7777. It has 4 sevens on the phone number. Now, another interesting data point is that this particular company was hired by my former partner. And in the past, there was this kind of similar situation with a landscaper that was hired by my former partner that turned out to be an agent. And that landscaper, to give you an idea of that situation. So that landscaper was recommended by the female agent that lives 26715 Valleyside Drive. So the house diagonal to me. She supposedly recommended that landscaper to my partner, to my former partner. And that landscaper is actually the landscaper of the pretty agents, the ones that are employed by Citgo, the Venezuelan company, who were positioned next door to me at 26718 Valleyside Drive, 77494. This method of referral to introduce an actually harmful agent is something that I've seen before. So, it's possible that this is one of those, and also the phone number has 4 sevens in the number, right? Which I know it's a marker, or could be a marker, right? Doesn't mean that everybody that has 4 sevens in the number, in the phone number, is an agent, but if they have 4 sevens and they are marked in the index, they're an agent, and they're dangerous agents. So that's why I'm mentioning that pool guy. In terms of description, this guy is about 5'11". I would put him at around 190, maybe 200 pounds, white Caucasian. He has a beard, and he drives a white truck, recent model. Another data point is that there was an instance in December 2024 when I was organizing this house because it's been vacant for months. And Penelope Suarez, she volunteered to help me clean it up, okay, to clean the house. That was one of the occasions where I believe Penelope, Mansour, and Francisco together were trying to harm me with the virus. And I'll say why I think that way. During that day, when Penelope was here helping me, this pool guy came at the exact precise moment, right, when we were working in one of the bedrooms downstairs. And his phone, I'm guessing it was his phone, but some device that he carried was acting as a relay point. It was relaying messages to inside my house, to and from my house, to some other location. Now, this is something that has puzzled me for all this time. Why would they need that relay when they have all the property surrounding my house? And that I can't quite figure out. I don't know if it was maybe like a security protocol. Instead of using the fixed nodes, thinking that maybe the FBI or some other entity could have those under electronic surveillance. And then instead of doing that, they used a mobile node, right? So the pool guy coming with the phone to supposedly clean the pool at the exact moment where we were doing this. And my system, although it was in the early stages, I was able to intercept some of the communications, some of the electronic exchanges between Penelope's phone, which was in her car in the garage, and the pool guy. And I was able to decrypt some of that. So that's how I know. Yeah, so the pool guy definitely is part of the network. Now I don't know what level of danger that agent represents, right? Because I know there's different types of agents. There are agents that are just driving around in a car, intercepting traffic. There are others that are driving around, just marking the location of the target. And there are others that are driving around looking to kill the target, like Arkansas, the DRT. They have different functions, and I don't know if this one is one of the ones that are dangerous, right? For my safety, I mean. But that's what I'm mentioning. And the other data point is something that I observed like last week. So my former partner talked to him about like doing some landscaping work besides the work that he does for the pool. And like they've been dragging their feet. He didn't do it, or I've been waiting for him to do it, and he hasn't done it. So last Saturday, I was coming from the other house to this house. And given that I've been waiting for this guy for 2 weeks and he hasn't done it, I'm gonna do it myself. And I put in my car my tools, like my gardening tools, to do the work myself. And I started driving from Lake Point Estates to this house. Now, the moment I arrived to this house, and the driving time is like 15 to 20 minutes, right? During that time, it turns out the guy came, although it was a Saturday, he wasn't supposed to come on a Saturday, and he had come on the previous day, the Friday, to clean the pool. So he came on that Saturday on the exact 20 minutes window that took me to come from the other house to this house. And the only thing that I did different was that I manually carried the tools to the vehicle, and that was visible from the Chinese safe houses. So my theory is the Chinese agents on the Chinese safe houses saw me carrying the tools, and they figured out that I was going to do the garden. And they needed the guy to come to the garden because maybe they wanted to remove something they had planted, or maybe they wanted to plant something in the garden. But if I did the work myself, I would kill that window for them, that opportunity. So they dispatched the guy very quickly. And when I arrived here, the guy was already working on the garden. The concerning part is that the informant told me that there was a plan in the works. Like, he didn't tell me that it was imminent, but he did tell me that there was a plan in the works to do something to the air conditioners to harm me. So that's that. Now, the other data point that I want to mention is about this house over here. So this, again, this is my house, right? 26714, this one. And there is a house here, which I believe is this. I might be wrong about the actual house. It might be this one or this one, but I'm pretty sure it's this one, 26735 Cedardale Pines Drive, okay? And there's an interesting story with this house. So last year, when I talked to the agent, the federal agent, Enrique Morales, seeking help, and I thought he was helping me, right? But after I talked to him, and I was already developing this anomaly detection system that is today the SpyHale pipeline. When I talked to him last year, after a few days, right, I was doing some work on the pipeline, and the pipeline found this, and the anomaly is that this house doesn't have any tax records in the county. They were deleted. Even last year, before everything escalated, the records were gone if the house doesn't exist, right? At the time, naive Reynaldo thought this must be the FBI, like this must be a consequence of me talking to Agent Enrique Morales, and this might be the FBI assessing the situation or something like that, right? Of course, now with everything I know today, and I see the geometry of the backyard, and I see the point, fast forward a few months, and I capture the geo index. When I check, this house is marked in the geo index. Of course, it wasn't the FBI, it was them, right? But this house must be important because they had removed them even from county records years ago, even before I became aware, right? So removing the properties from the county records is part of an operational procedure for important properties of things that could be damaging to them. So this house must be something very interesting for law enforcement, right? Because it was removed from the records years ago. Add to that the house on the back of that property has the trapezoid-shaped backyard that we have identified before. This is the Cuban agents that were flagged and reported to the IRS. The last name escapes me right now, but they were Cubans. I don't know if they're still alive. I think that they've replaced them already. But you see the pattern, right? So an important house on the backyard, there is a Cuban agent with this oversized backyard. It's a similar situation to the house of Penelope Suarez. It's the exact same setup, right? It's like copy-paste, basically. So this agent must be very interesting. Now, there's another data point that consistently, right, and I have this recorded in the system, there has been a car, it's a Toyota Camry silver or gold, that is usually parked on this street in front of this house. And it has a license plate. I don't have access to my system right now, but I think the license plate is something like Sam Lulu Bravo 3111. So that or something very close to that. And it's always parked on this street. Well, almost always, okay? And the system believes that it's tied to this mysterious house that is not in the records. Now, the interesting thing is that car sometimes is also parked at this house, 10110 Springfield Range Drive, which is just a few feet away. It has a visual, so from that house, you can see my house, you can see my driveway, right? So this house has a direct line of surveillance to my house. And that mysterious car sometimes is parked in this house on the back that is gone from the records, that is not in the records, in the county records. And some other days is parked in this house. A very strange situation because it's a vehicle, it's like this person has two houses, one very close to each other. That's what it would look like. Now, there's another data point, is that some of the imagery that I have from that car from when I was living in this house, you know, those images are in the pipeline. And some of those images are co-clustered with images of the driver in that car is co-clustered with low confidence. It's not above threshold. So it might be just somebody who looks alike, okay? I have to say that, but it is possible it could be the same person. The confidence is low, but it is possible. So this driver of this Toyota Camry SLB 3111 was co-clustered a few times with the driver of the white SUV that comes out of the Lanham's house at Lake Point Estate, co-clustered. And the Lanham's SUV has been co-clustered in the past with Harold Martinez. Again, low confidence. It's not a low threshold, but it could be somebody that looks like Harold. That's what I'm saying. But it's strange. That Camry is co-clustered with, so the driver of the Camry that parks in these two houses, both in close proximity to my house, back and front of my house, is co-clustered visually with the driver of the white SUV of the Lanham's, which is also close to another house that I have in a different subdivision. And that driver has been co-clustered with low confidence, but co-clustered with Harold Martin. It's a lot of coincidence. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Next up, oh, sorry, one more thing. Going back to the pool guy, that day that he came by in December, Penelope Suarez was helping me clean up the house. Something happened that I've noticed recently. If somebody ever sees these videos, you will realize how much I value security, right? Given the circumstances and given that I know that they're targeting me. So I have to say this, it is impossible that I left the windows open. That is just impossible, right? Because at this point, because of the attempts against my life and all that, one could say even paranoid, right? That they could break in or steal something like with my kids. It's impossible that I left those windows open. Now, what I have to say is that day when Penelope Suarez helped me clean the house, two things happened. Okay, one is that 4 of the windows in the main bedroom downstairs were left unlocked. I did not unlock them. I'm not saying that she did it on purpose, but they are unlocked, okay? They were unlocked. I just found out yesterday. I locked them back, but they were unlocked, which is dangerous, right? Because I was sleeping here and anybody could break in just by lifting the window. So I locked them up. And I'm sure I did not leave them unlocked. Nobody has come into this house in not 9 months until I came last week or 2 weeks ago. So that's one data point. The other data point is that at some point in 2022, Mansour, who was posing as a dermatologist, he gave me a lotion to help me with some things like small pimples that I had or an eruption that I had from shaving. Mansour was referred by my former partner and Harold Martinez. And it turns out that substance that he gave me, it had something like really harmful. Like I would get, when I used it, I would get this, it was an infection in my eyes. It was horrible. My eyes would itch and I would have to scratch like very, very strongly. It was horrible to the point that I could not work because I could not see. Anyhow, when I saw that, I discontinued the use of that lotion and I left it in my medicine cabinet. Now, after Penelope Suarez helped me clean the house and organize it, it turns out that lotion is gone, right? Like it's no longer there. What I'm saying is that I'm getting the sense that part of the suggestion of helping me clean the house maybe was motivated by having the opportunity to pick up these things that could be damning pieces of evidence and to unlock the window, right? To open the door for something in the future. But of course, these are hypotheses, right? Like the only way to know would be asking Penelope, right? So that's that. On the same note, there was an instance in 2023 when I met Penelope in the afternoon. It was a weekday. I don't have the exact date, but it would be, I think, trivial for law enforcement to find the date because of the data points that I'm going to give. So it was a weekday. It was about 6:30 p.m., maybe 6:45, around that time. And we met at this, there is a Starbucks. I'll give you the address. It's exactly here. 6440 FM 1463, Fulshire, Texas 77441. And I parked my car right here it would be something like 29.69828 minus 95.84630. And we had coffee, like I bought some coffee or hot chocolate, I think. And then I drank it and I started feeling ill, like terribly ill. Like I started sweating and feeling cold. And I told her, listen, I think I should go because I don't know if I will be able to drive if I get worse. And this trip to my house was very close, but I left and I came home. When I come home, I asked my former partner if she had something for indigestion. Like I described the symptoms. And she said, well, I have this Pepto-Bismol bottle. This was a pink bottle. It was practically new, if not completely new. And I drank some of that medicine. It's over the counter, right? It's an over the counter medicine. I did not buy it. It was here in my home already. I don't know who bought it. But when I drank it, I got much, much worse. And I passed out. I literally passed out. I fell on the floor. It was a horrible incident. I woke up 3 or 4 hours later. And to this day, I don't know what happened to me. Anyhow, I think I have that bottle and I'll preserve it just in case the medicine was. So what I suspect happened, right? They put something in the coffee or in the hot chocolate that I had to make me feel a little bit ill, enough for me to want to drink that medicine. And they had contaminated that medicine with something. That's what I think happened. Because that was right that was during the point where I was about to buy the other house and move out of Valleyside Drive. Like it was a very tense point in the conflict, to the point that this guy with the Scotland plate on the truck almost ran me off the road, right? They were desperate, right? They were desperate to cause an incident that could harm me. So I think it was intentional. If it had been a regular time in my life, right, I maybe would not think that way, but even that period of those few weeks was so tense, I think that incident could have been intentional. That's what I'm saying. Okay, the next observation, this one is a little bit tricky. And I've been thinking how to say this because I know that anything I say will become under scrutiny and they will try to weaponize it to kind of try to save themselves. And I don't want to give them any ammunition. And this might be first of all, I don't know if this is an universal observation. It's something that I've observed, but I don't know, maybe there's a cultural component to it, okay? Maybe, and I don't know, I don't have really any friends left that I could ask this question, but I'll say it. And the reason why I'm hesitant to say it is because I think some people might be offended if I don't frame it correctly. And it's tricky, but I'll go ahead and say it. So this is what I've noticed. So I've lived in different cities throughout my life. I lived in Montreal, I lived in Calgary, in Alberta, Canada. I lived in San Francisco, New York, and in Katy. Okay? And Calgary and Texas, both places are big hubs, big operational hubs of this network. I believe it has to do, and this is just a theory, but I believe it has to do with the presence of oil production. Because Venezuela, they have a strong interest in oil, obviously. These two places are like the two major production hubs in North America for oil and gas. And obviously, right, they want to take control of that one way or another. But in these two places, both Katy and Calgary, there's been a couple of agents that, according to the technology I have today and the knowledge I've gathered and all that, seem to be very prominent, right? Like they have all the signals of prominence. If you make a checklist, they have it, right? Now, and this is the tricky part, they have something in common, both of them, is that both of them are men with, how do I say this? I would say not so manly characteristics. I'm not saying that they're, that they have feminine ways, but they're not very manly. They're not, how do I say this? If you think of an alpha man, right, like in your mind, right, you probably think, I don't know, somebody like, I don't know, Sylvester Stallone, right, or somebody who is a firefighter, right? But these two agents, they don't have those characteristics. In fact, they have also a commonality, which is that they're both chefs. So for a living, what they do is cooking, okay? And now, like this is what I say. I don't know if it's a cultural thing or if you're a Hispanic man, and I don't know if this is universal, but if you're a Hispanic man, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you're a Hispanic man and you think of who would be the less threatening men for you, it would probably be chefs. And again, I don't know if this is a universal perception, right? Like maybe something that has to do only with the Hispanic culture. But and what I'm saying this because I think the fact that they picked that profession for that specific function of agents is on purpose. It's because they seem less threatening because they're chefs, like they cook for a living. That's what they do. So the one here in Katy is Luis Martinez, and he even had a restaurant. And Luis Martinez is very interesting because like he's one of the few people that connects at the same time to both my former partner and Penelope Suarez, which are two people that were close to me. But no other agent that I can think of, except for the double Harold Martinez, Mansour, except for them, no other, but those are two individuals, right? It's not a single individual. But Luis Martinez is, I think, the only individual that is connected both to the Suarez family and to my former partner. You know, obviously he's very dangerous, right? And I'm not saying only because of that, but also because of the signals, the scores, the paramilitary scores, like all the other things. And he's a chef. Like he had a restaurant, and in fact, the night I met him for the first time, which was 2016, it was at a party that my former partner took me to. It was like I don't know, like a high school graduation of a kid of one of her friends, something like that. And he was the company catering to the event. And the one in Calgary, it's a man that has a kind of a patisserie business. Like he made croissants and he catered exclusively to the Venezuelans living in Calgary. And he was introduced to me, I think, by Miguel Miura, okay, which is a childhood friend from back in the days in the 80s. Yes. Okay, the next observation I have is about El Pollo Carvajal. Pollo Carvajal, he was the chief of the Venezuelan intelligence for many years, since the times of Hugo Chavez and after that. And like he has been in all sorts of situations, let's call it that way, in which authorities from the US have inquired about him. I think at one point he was detained, I think in Curacao or Aruba, but then that created an international incident, right? And several countries exercised pressure, and I don't know if it was Curacao or Aruba, but one of those countries, whichever it was, kind of gave in to the pressure and released him before he could be extradited to the US. Anyhow, at some point, I think, say 2000, I don't know, 19 maybe or 18, he supposedly had a fight, like a very public fight with Nicolas Maduro and the Venezuelan government. And supposedly he had to flee the country and seek asylum in Spain. And I'm saying supposedly because having the index and seeing all this, I understand that was improved. There was really no conflict. It was just a matter, it was just a way for the government to position him in Spain so he could do something important in Spain for the Porteos Alcabe. The same thing that happened with Rafael Ramirez, right, after he retired from the United Nations as an ambassador for Venezuela. He ended up living in Italy, and the Venezuelan government accuses him of all sorts of things, but they never seek extradition or try to capture or do anything to him. And it's not that they can't reach him, because obviously, if they're doing all this to me being non-important and being in the United States, I cannot imagine what they could do to him in Italy. But they don't, because they don't want to. They don't want to do it. That's part of the plan. They're cooperating, they're working together still. So anyhow, when he was in Spain, I think he was deported to the US last year or 2 years ago, I can't recall. But when he was in Spain, he was supposedly in hiding, okay? The building where he was hiding is marked in the GeoIndex, in Elon Musk's GeoIndex, with high paramilitary score. Now, this is an important observation, not so much because of El Pollo Carvajal, but because how do I say this? So if the highest official and somebody who was the highest official of the Venezuelan intelligence for many years, more than a decade, if his hiding place is marked in this geo index, and say that I had captured that geo index before he was apprehended by authorities in Spain, I could have revealed his hiding location. I guess what I'm trying to say is if the hiding location of the highest Venezuelan intelligence officer is revealable using this geo index, it must mean that the geo index is accurate, right? And that the technology that I have developed around it is accurate. There's no other explanation. So that's why I'm offering that observation. Side note, there's another person, El Pollo Brito, who is a Venezuelan performing artist who is also marked in the index, and it's also called El Pollo. Now, I don't know if El Pollo is another prominence marker that they use, but I don't know. Seems like a strange coincidence, right? Two pollos marked in the index. So I don't know, just a piece of information, maybe something, maybe it's not. And the last observation, not the last, the before last, is one that I also been thinking about whether to say it or not, because if I think of it, it sounds like a fantastic observation, something that is imagination. But at the same time, these people have done things just to steal my code that are fantastic. If somebody had told me that 3 years ago, I would say that person is crazy. For example, right, at some point, they acquired XisList.org for $2 billion, $2,000 million. And maybe they had another objectives in mind with that, but one thing that they got out of that is that they got all my medical records and they got my doctor, and they basically got the opportunity to prescribe anything they wanted to prescribe to me for the price tag of $2 billion. Like, well, of course, they got the medical group as well. If I think of the dimension of that, it's incomprehensible, right? To a person that is not familiar with these matters. It would be incomprehensible, right? If I say that, people will think I'm crazy. But I know they acquired that group because I can see it in an index that the group is under their control, so the XisList group. That's where Marjorie Broussard works, who was my primary care doctor when I could go to the doctor. So that's why I'm going to say this observation, because it is a fantastic, if the amount of money that this would cost and the logistics, it's kind of hard to pull off, but I think it's less hard than buying XisList, so I'm going to say it. So this illustration, my house is 26714, right? This one over here. So right when the situation started escalating, when I had built a key opinion leaders technology, right? And I was in this fight with Liana Technologies over the position in Google, and they were trying to steal the code and all that. Around that time, when I was running with Penelope Suarez on this park on the back, we noticed that they started installing, somebody, the electricity company, started installing these posts, and you can see them here in the image, right? These are huge, like they're very tall posts. I've never seen electricity posts that tall, so close to residential houses. So anyhow, they installed it, right? And I always looked at them. I didn't know any of these. I didn't have the geoindex. I knew they were trying to steal my code, but I didn't know that I was on the physical surveillance, let alone that they control all these houses to run in my house. So I didn't pay much attention to the polls. Now, today, I have to tell you, these polls have a very interesting characteristic, which is that these two poles over here, the one that is 29.71217 and minus 95.83767, and this one that is at 29.71177 minus 95.83666, those two poles have a perfect line of sight to my office, to the windows on the side of my house. And this is the path. I don't know if you can see it, but let me see if I can show you. Okay, this is the house, right? So the office in the house is in this area over here, right above 29.71153 minus 95.83948. And these posts are positioned so the line of sight to the windows on the second floor of my house go exactly in between the empty spaces between these houses over here. With what I know today, my guess is that they have some sort of, they could have, right, some sort of radio frequency probes or something like that to get the MAC addresses of the cell phones or something, maybe visual surveillance, I don't know. But the position is precisely like it. If you wanted to make that happen, like the arrangement that they have where those poles are arranged in terms of visual line of sight to my house, if you wanted to make that happen on purpose, like you would have to apply a lot of engineering and mathematics. You have to calculate the angles. It's not an easy task. And for this to happen randomly, right, it made me think. Now, I have to say, I saw a kind of a similar situation with this. When I moved to Lake Point Estates, that was on June 27, 2024, so almost a year ago, right? My house in Lake Point Estate is this one, right? 2302 Britton Ridge Drive. Now, immediately after I moved there, they started building this sports complex over here. No, in fact, the sports complex is not even in the satellite imagery yet, but they built a sports complex in this area around, I would say, it's around here, 29.75.514 minus 95.79.885. And there's a few things on that complex, right? So one is that the name is something that has the word escape with X. And this is a well-known marker. There's a lot of companies that have this marker, like Cityscape, Spy Escape, like it's a marker, right? And all these companies are marked in the index. And this company has that escape marker, and it's also marked in the index. And remember, I moved into this complex on July, and I captured the index on September 11th. So roughly 2 months after, and it was already marked in the index when I captured it, right? Meaning that they started building it right after I moved. Now, the other thing that is interesting about this property, this company, the building is very tall, okay? And from the top floor, it has a direct line of sight to my house via this way. It's something like from here to here. And the line of sight goes exactly through like the empty spaces in between the houses. And when they were building it, they had a super tall crane before it was built. They had a super tall crane, which is understandable because the building is tall. But, and I can't prove this, but it seemed to me like the crane was always positioned in a way that had a direct line of sight to my driveway. So it's possible that this is a surveillance technique, right? Build something tall so you can get direct line of sight and put a camera in somehow covered way, and that way you can always tell when the target is going in or out. And this is another example of that thing that I was saying before, that this is the kind of thing that if one says it, it sounds like the person is crazy. But that is because a regular person that hasn't gone through this doesn't have the understanding that for these people, money is not an object. Because of course, like it comes mostly, well, not mostly, but in big part from the drug trade and the illicit trades and the commission of crime. Buy a building, install a power line at high altitude. Like it's no problem. Even if it costs a few $1 million, that is not an issue, right? So that's why I'm mentioning that. Now, the last thing I wanted to touch on is on the M routers. So if you go to the website, to XisList.org, and you click on this link on the bottom here that says M routers, you'll get to this dashboard that I'm showing you. I already have it open here, okay? So this dashboard has basically some of the major routers in the network. But what's interesting about this dashboard is that it has already, and I think I mentioned this in the video where I described the Form 211, that I targeted specific subnets when I reported them to the IRS. And that's because the way I could do it is because they encoded into the street numbers of the properties, they encoded the function of the property. So, for example, I believe, and this is a theory for law enforcement to investigate and maybe corroborate, the properties that end in 00 are properties that are important and are used to route financial communications and transactions. And for example, properties that ends in 07 are prominent properties that are usually tied to engineering or like groups like South Typhoon, for example. And I have one of those right in front of my house, and I have many notable incidents documented with those two houses, right? Those two houses, let me show you. Well, I am at 26714 Valley Side Drive, Katy. So there's this one that has the solar panels arranged in this particular way with this orientation in the ceiling. This is a prominent South Typhoon house. And you see the address ends in 11. So this is just one example, right? And the house next to it, which is also a very prominent house, also South Typhoon, 2607, it ends in 07. Anyhow, in this dashboard, if you click on network function, you see I have different subnets that I found through data analysis, and they're already parsed and selectable in this dashboard. So you can, if you want to see only engineering, you can click on that, and it will restrict the data in this dashboard to only properties that basically fall in 07. And they're, of course, sorted by prominence, and you can do that with different. So, for example, if you work for the FBI, for example, in the counterintelligence task force, you probably are interested in this one, in this subnet, the intelligence subnet, which are RSS usually tied to 06 or 09. And you will see that here, right? There's another filter that has the network level. The explanation of this is a little bit more convoluted, and it will make this video too long, but I encourage you to check the website, spyhealth.org/evidence, and look for big routers. Look for that phrase, BIG space ROUTERS. And there's a full explanation of how this network level works, which is an important metric as well. And to access this dashboard, you can do it directly. You can go through the website and click on the routers link in the footer at the bottom, or you can simply do spyhealth.org/m-routers written here, and that will also open this dashboard. This is all for today for this video, and again, I thank you so much for your time, and see you next time. Thank you.